Hello and a very warm welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining us for this very special report. It's very much appreciated. My name's David Roth from WPP and I'm delighted to be one of the co-authors of The Store as a Medium. This report was released for the NRF conference in New York, and I'm delighted to be joined today by a number of other contributors to the store as a medium. And together, we hope that over the course of the next 90 minutes, we'll give you a very good understanding of what the store as a medium really is and its significance. And the reason, I suppose, that many commentators are now saying that the store as a medium is really going to have a profound impact for brands and retailers alike. So I'm delighted to introduce Maroun from Intel, Robert from Lenovo ISG, Jay from VSBLTY, Leon from WestRock, Pedro from AB InBev, Cecile from Hogarth, Adrian from Kinetic, and Luke from VMLY&R. Together, all of us will be able to give you a deeper understanding of why you should be thinking of engaging within the concept of the store as a medium. Now, that concept has many component parts to it, and to help us put some structure to be able to navigate some of those, we've taken all of those and put them into 6 core propositions, and each of those propositions has a number of hypotheses within them, which we'll be discussing as a group. So what are those 6 core propositions? Well, first, the store as a medium in terms of infrastructure as a service. We'll all become very familiar with a SaaS model, software as a service, and we'd like to introduce to you the concept now of infrastructure as a service. The second area is how the store as a medium is going to enable retailers to deliver much needed superior retail economics across multiple areas in terms of their store portfolios, not just for the very large stores, but also for mama and papa retailers alike. The third area is how the store as a medium will empower FMCG brands to be much more efficient with the money they currently spend on promotions, and also help them drive incremental sales, a double win. The fourth area is how the store as a medium will help us to create new, highly desirable in-store programmatic advertising inventory that benefits retailers and advertisers and brand owners, but also consumers as well. The fifth area is all about creativity. How can we use this medium to be much more creative in a new, engaging way? And also the delivery model. How do you get that creativity to the place where the consumer is at the point they're in the store in a nanosecond? And the sixth and final area is, I suppose, the all-important positive financial returns and return on investment, with a whole series of other additional dividends in terms of increasing productivity for retailers and brand owners alike. Now, at the end of the session, we'll give you an opportunity to ask as many questions as you have to our distinguished panel, so that you can really understand how you can optimize the store as a medium. Now, the next hour promises to be amazingly informative, but also, I hope, challenging to your current perceptions of what is possible, and an exciting examination of the next revolution in retail. Let's begin. Technology is one of those things where there is continuous change and continuous improvement. What changes and improvements in relation to the store as a medium and making that possible have we seen in terms of technology over the course of the last few years? Maroun.
Now, technology will be at the heart of allowing the network, the retail media network, to deliver these experiences, especially when the right audience is in proximity of these digital services. And technology will be key to ensure that we can measure the efficacy of serving those experiences.
Maroun, what are the core technologies that have been improved, enhanced over the course of the last few years that really now make the store as a medium a feasible, viable proposition?
We call them superpowers. In order to help us establish the store to become an effective medium for communication or advertisement. One is cloud. And you know this idea of unlimited capacity, mobile, unlimited reach. You know, literally half of the population of the planet is now accessible. Edge compute and IoT being the third. We can compute anything. We don't need to send any image to the cloud. We can leverage edge compute to process AI at the edge and only send metadata to the cloud. IoT, you know, being able to cross the physical to the digital world and really allowing telemetry, automation, and control to just about everything. And finally, AI, the ability to bring intelligence to everything. Now, when you combine these four superpowers together, right, and they're going to reinforce each other. AI would not have been possible without cloud and edge compute. The ability to compute at scale. We're going to be able to interact with people when they are in the physical store in a natural conversation with digital services. We're going to be able to do it through mobile devices and the digital surfaces in the store. And they're going to give us more data and that's going to allow us to improve our analytics. So it's really a reinforcing spiral of those four superpowers coming together. And
Maroun, how significant and important is the whole concept of visual compute?
Because of the investment that the industry, especially Intel, is making in process technology to make compute low power and low cost and very small. So that's going to play a big role in allowing us to not only digitize any surface in the store and do it cheaply, but more importantly, to have the processing power at the edge to process things locally. Because when we talk about the store as a medium, as an effective channel for advertisement, is being able to serve experiences that are relevant, being able to render all that media in real time and serve amazing experiences. That is the future of the physical store as an effective channel for communication.
Robert, from your perspective at Lenovo, how do you see the pace of technology changes and what impact has that already had on our ability now to deliver the store as a medium?
Thanks so much, David. That's a great question. You know, what we're seeing today is this movement of technology moving closer to the source of the data, where data is being generated. You know, we've had IoT sensor devices generating mountains of data over the past few years, and we are experiencing, what we're experiencing now is compute moving closer to those data sources. We call this data gravity, and being able to make sense of the data that's being generated for enterprises. We're also driving down the cost of acquisition, the cost to get started, and that lowers the barrier of entry, being able to launch some of these new AI and technology, emerging technology initiatives. So that's the other benefit of Moore's Law, and also the size and form factor of technology. You know, now we have something that we would, 20, 30 years ago would have considered a supercomputer. Now we can put it in the palm of our hand. And that has really transformed the ability for enterprise organizations and retailers to be able to use artificial intelligence in their store environment. And I think that has been a game changer.
So, Robert, when you look into your technology crystal ball as relates to the store of a media as a medium, what do you see?
Yeah, if I look into my crystal ball and think about, we need to start thinking about the retail environment, the physical brick and mortar store, in the same way that we think about our web platforms and e-commerce sites, right? You have the full attention of consumers when they walk through that door. They can take advantage of that in a way that brings new revenue streams to them. So by 2025, 75% of all data will be processed at the edge. So this is where we see a lot of the IoT generated data, the device data that is being generated, in the stores and in the store environment is going to be processed locally, and that's why bringing new compute that is lower cost, smaller form factor, more consumable by retailers is going to transform the ability for them to use analytics in the store at the edge and be able to actually monetize the engagement that they have and the relationship they have with consumers. We really see the transformation of artificial intelligence, transforming the retail environment, changing the game from being the art of possible to the art of practical. It's no longer that AI is something that is, out of reach by many retailers, but it's something that they can get started today in a very cost-effective manner, and even being able to get started in an as-a-service model.
Robert, Maroun, you both talk about the edge and edge computing. To the layperson, what is edge computing and why is it such an advantage within the concept of the store as a medium?
We look at edge computing as things that happen outside of the core and cloud. So it could be something as small as your, mobile phone, a tablet, a gateway, or a small PC, or even an edge server. And what we're seeing is, this the compute's actually moving closer to the data source. We see data gravity taking effect and bringing the compute closer to where the data is being generated. And so the architecture may change from one deployment to the other, but what we're seeing in effect is that there's some compute and some intelligence that is happening closer to where the sensors are in the stores.
All of a sudden, the intelligent shelf, the intelligent end cap, any surface in the store can become digital and or smart. It's also connected. More importantly, that processing power within the shelf gives the shelf the ability to sense the environment around it. What that gives us the ability to understand the environment in real time and tailor the experiences. At the end of the day, from a brand perspective, they're really interested in having a conversation with the shopper, with the consumer that is relevant. This what gives us the ability to understand the audience in real time. Edge compute, from that, it's a technology term, but from a store as a medium perspective, all of a sudden we have the ability to leverage the processing capability at the edge, at the point of truth or influence, in a way to ensure that the experience that is being served to the consumer is one-on-one, is relevant, is amazing.
One of the issues I think that's held back capital investment within retail environments, especially as it relates to digital infrastructure in stores, has just been the cost of scaling. Maroun, we're seeing within our construct of the store as a medium, I think something that is quite revolutionary that will turbocharge the ability to be able to deal with the capital expenditure. Can you tell us a little bit more about
That is a very critical question, David. If you were to look at the key frictions that made it super hard for retailers to adopt consumer-facing technologies at scale and in the store, what I mean by consumer-facing technology is intelligent shelves, intelligent end caps, digital screens, kiosk, digital services in the store. And these are technologies that would have facilitated amazing experiences for a long time, and we've had them. We've had these technologies for at least 5 to 6 years. But if we were to dig deeper at this problem, you will find out that the two biggest frictions that precluded the adoption of such technologies were the lack of business model. And by that, I mean who pays the capex for the digital infrastructure? And two, the lack of right financials. For example, the revenue potential that you can monetize from these consumer-facing technologies, in the past, it did not just justify the investment at scale. What we believe now, that unless you solve these two frictions, we may be faced with a future whereas the retailer is investing in their human capital to make a difference in the experiences in the store versus investment in technologies. But the primary metric for success for these consumer-facing technologies is gonna be the media value.
One of the things that's very important, of course, today, but it's going to be even more important for both retailers and brands going forward, is to get much, much closer to their consumers. The ability to be able to fuse various different data sources, first-party data that both the retailer and the brand owner might have, and other data sources as well, to do that in a way that then delivers for the consumer much more personalized experiences. And here, the store as a medium with the ability to be able to have smart screens and a smart digital infrastructure will enable smart retailers and brands to be able to deploy that data in, of course, a privacy compliant way, in a way that will enable a whole series of much more personalized experiences for shoppers when they're in the physical store itself. Now, of course, we tend to think about communications within retail stores as being very much dictated by tactical opportunities and, in creative terms, then tactical messages. But I think one of the really intriguing things about the store as a medium, the infrastructure that can be put in place and the digital canvas that will be created, is that it will be as applicable for great brand stories to enhance consumers' perceptions of the brands as it will be then to convert them to make a purchase immediately. I think people will be able to very quickly understand how the store as a medium can really help large retailers. But is this just a large big box retailer play? Is there any significance for the store of a medium in smaller format stores or even mama and papa stores?
Well, what's really interesting about the store as a medium, manifested and demonstrated, I think, by some of the success being had right now by some of the global retailers, is the fact that this, for the first time, really levels the playing field between modern trade and traditional trade. And what most people don't know is there are many markets that are dominated by traditional trade, that are most of the commerce occurs through traditional trade. You think of North Africa, India, most of Latin America, traditional trade. So if we don't have a solution that addresses traditional trade, you could reasonably say you're leaving a lot of the globe behind. What's really good about this, and of course it's addressed by scale, modern trade may have 60, 70, 90 digital activations within store. Traditional trade might have 1, 2, or 3. But the truth is that's a valuable medium. Again, going back to the metrics, a lot of the volume, and in many cases, most of the volume in terms of trade is done through traditional trade. So not having a solution that will drive velocity, lift, data, and traditional trade is actually a real miss. So the idea here is we're now leveling the playing field, where we can actually combine retail media networks that have a piece of modern trade and a piece of traditional trade so that a CPG can buy a little bit of both. It's a really fascinating idea to me, and I'm excited by the idea that traditional trade doesn't have to follow from a technology point of view in terms of adoption. They can lead. And that to me is a real opportunity that is really became first known to us under the store articulating as a media channel.
Leon, you're an expert in all forms of retailing right across the world, from small mama and papa stores to the largest of international retailers. Through your lens, how do you see the store as a medium being able to be adaptive across store formats?
Yeah, when I look at this this technology, this phenomenon, if you will, to me, this is a real what I might call bridge technology. It really helps to bridge some of the advantages that the formal, or let's call it the traditional trade, has traditionally had in terms of the use of technology, the scaling of technology, the engagement with the consumer, et cetera. It helps to bridge the formal and the informal because this technology is available to be applied in the informal trade at that smaller scale. You're in effect bringing all of the value and benefits of store as medium to the mom and pop, the smaller or the more informal trade. So it to me, this is a bridge technology. It's also bridging for the shopper. The shopper who is accustomed to seeing a more technologically advanced kind of environment in the formal trade now gets to see this in the informal trade as well. And so it isn't therefore seen as a trade down for them. It levels, I think, the playing field for them in the media space. For me, this is an opportunity for the consumer goods industry to really capture what is today, candidly, a big white space. It's white in terms of data. It's white in terms of the transactions. It's really white in terms of really understanding what's happening on the ground in the store. And the capacity for particularly a smaller informal trade outlet really now to incorporate media does something else that a small operator is looking for, and that's drive basket. It's to drive transaction size. For other retailers, for particularly large-scale retailers, the idea is really to drive traffic. But for the smaller retailer who tends to get the traffic anyways because the shopper uses that smaller outlet as a pantry, in effect, what you get to do now is say, if I could just get that shopper to spend one more peso, right? Just one more, or buy one more item, or the capacity for basket add-on for these smaller retailers is the difference between success and bankruptcy, quite honestly. And so to me, this offers a real opportunity to play with the bigger players, we'll say, for that informal trade. And to me, that really makes the economics of this really quite compelling.
A major plank of many retailers and brand owners' strategies, Leon, and quite rightly so, is trying to reduce their environmental impact. To what extent can the store as a medium help in those strategic imperatives?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're absolutely right that retailers and manufacturers really, since COVID, I would actually say, have gotten more serious, have gotten into the programming now of saying, look, we've got to do something to reduce our environmental impact and putting forth science-based targets. And when you do that, of course, then you have to adhere to them. You know, you've given yourself a goal and now you've got to do something about it. I think the first thing I would say is there's just sort of on the face of it, there's no question that if you have a digital representation versus a material representation of an advertisement, obviously it reduces the environmental footprint. If you are running on a digital advertising, say 8 or 9 different messages, say, off that screen, that would otherwise be 8 or 9 different physical manifestations of product or display or packaging or what have you in the store in order to be that targeted to this particular group or this particular time of year. So the capacity to hold all of that digitally and then deliver it, all of it with precision, I think necessarily reduces the environmental, the product, the material footprint that is operating in the store. And, you know, the calculations here are enormous. You're talking about substantial tonnage of material that is taken off the market. The other point that I would make about store as a medium and digitizing surfaces and digitizing the engagement in the store is that this type of engagement with the consumer is necessarily more permanent. Right. I mean, if you think about a lot of merchandising today in the store, in-aisle shippers and end caps, they're up one week, they're out the next. There's enormous amount of setting up and tearing down in retail. The labor cost aside from all of that, which is substantial, but from a sustainability perspective here, you're talking about a lot of material running through a store. Well, with this type of merchandising, given the capital investment that is made and just given the nature of the merchandising, it's necessarily more permanent.
Jay, what are you seeing and what's your learnings of the stores of medium so far in the traditional channels?
Well, I guess the most important learning, and when we collaborated in our joint venture with AB InBev, we identified risks and opportunities. Among the risks and uncertainties, obviously, is the amount of money that could be demanded for impressions delivered in store. If we look at the business case, as Pedro and I did in great detail, the biggest risk of that business case was, what could it command? What could presence in retail, especially traditional retail, what could it command? And, several months in now, I'm happy to report that it is precisely within the requirements that we'd identified, which tells me that there is significant demand among CPGs, not just the ones you might immediately think of, but some that are sort of beyond what you would normally think of, for video impressions delivered at the point of sale, the moment of truth where the action happens. And that hypothesis, I expect, will hold true as we scale.
Now, Pedro, as a major CPG business yourselves, what of the pain points that you have as a business does the Store of the Media give you the opportunity to solve now?
The big pain point that this is tackling for us is giving us the possibility to do A/B testing of different images, different videos, before launching them in paper or before launching them in video at a different cost. So now we can
Pedro, does that give you speed of execution benefits and cost benefits and sort of certainty that when you roll something out, it's right?
That's correct, and that it's really out there. When you do it in paper, you can put it in the store, but the next day it's not in the wall, and that's a big pain point because that's a lot of money that's thrown away.
That's the thing. Compliance is a big part of it, and not well attended to, not sort of well understood. It is critical, although potentially redundant for me to say this, but the idea that you can launch a specific type of creative to create a certain response, promotional response, or call to action, and then test that campaign in geographies and against demographics to determine its effectiveness, and then if it's not effective, to pivot. Think of trying to do that exact same thing if what lies between you and campaign deployment, 6 weeks of printing.
Now, one of the things that, Pedro, you talk about and are quoted about in our Store as a Medium white paper is the concept of the traditional trade not wanting to be traditional anymore. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we did the implementation of our B2B platform, and it was a big surprise for us that the adoption was really significant. We have more than 70% of our sales already digitalized, and that was done in 1 year with the pandemic. So what we learned also was that the trade is looking for different tools. Don't want to be traditional, or they don't even want to be called traditional anymore, but they don't know about technology. So we need to bring them solutions that are frictionless for their implementation and that really add value.
We talked about the ability of Stores of Medium to be able to get over some of the pain points of the CPG manufacturers. Why don't we look at it through the other side of that telescope? How does it help get over some of the pain points that retailers have as well?
What I can say is that today we're trying to give them access to Wi-Fi for those mom and pops that don't have access to Wi-Fi. So kind of the Stores of Medium package comes with that, and that's a big pain point today that they have.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's not only do the individual store owners benefit from their store getting a slight digital makeover, which I think impacts the look and feel of their retail location and potentially attracts more consumers. But independently validated, there's lift, right? If you do a campaign associated with X product will generally engage in a 18 to 35% lift month over month. So there's tangible benefit for the retailer.
I would say, or try to summarize it for us, and what I would say, David, is that actually what we want to or where we want to get is to a way to do personalization at scale. And I think that that's the beauty of technology. The beauty of technology is to understand that there's different audiences that we want to reach. There's different demographics. There's different correlations with social economical levels, with different variables that we can today find out and correlate and give personalization at scale.
Is there collective enthusiasm about actually what the store as a medium can deliver to you as a business?
I think that the enthusiasm is there. I think that, of course, there's the skepticism in the business case as a whole. And that's why I was saying the time is right. And I think that there's been experiences in the past where stores and medium was tried to be implemented before. And the reality is that it was not cost efficient. The return was not clear. And there were no data and analytics and data scientists in the table to really extract value from it. So I think that that's the difference.
Jay, in your pioneering journey thus far, what would you say some of the main both blockers have been and how have they been unblocked?
Well, we've got a very loyal and committed partner, and we're very appreciative of that. Part of what I think is magical about this particular arrangement is we're a tech stack company. We happen to be subject matter experts in this category, so that's unique and important. But we're all in, right? So if the tech stack company believes in the end game and the CPG believes in the end game and the retailer believes in the end game, you have everybody believing in the end game, which means they'll sacrifice immediate outcome for long-term outcome.
Adrian, we're creating all this new inventory inside of stores through the various different screens and surfaces. Will advertisers actually want to buy this inventory?
Absolutely, is the short answer. I think if we take a step back to look at outdoor media, any media that's transacted outside of the home, there's already a robust and extremely valuable marketplace that's being transacted via DSPs. This is making use of a variety of different audience signals from their users' actual geo behaviors, things that they've purchased in the past, any of their media consumption habits, user sentiment based on social media feeds. All of these data points and attributes about audiences are already being aggregated at significant scale. That enables us to define and profile them based on their exposure to certain outdoor screens. Now, I would say that in the first wave of out-of-home media, it was very restricted to billboards and some of the roadside street furniture. And subsequently, the second wave went to place-based screens such as malls, cinemas, etc. Retail media is really the third wave, and I think one of the most valuable in that it really brings the ability to reach consumers out of the home to the point of purchase. And that ability to identify key audiences and the places to best reach them at key retail, the ability to use things such as the live store availability of certain products to register different creative messaging for timely offers, or to capitalize on the fact that for an ice cream brand, the temperature is ticking over to a certain point, and therefore consumers are going to be even more in market for your products to boost delivery of your ads to these inventory sources, and ultimately the ability to influence behavior at the point of purchase. going back to premium ice cream, you'll be able to determine somebody's actually present at the chiller where these premium brands are located. And as a result of that intent, knowing they're there, observing the products, you can then intercept and message them for a promotion agreement for your brand that is able to influence their behavior to go ahead and purchase your product over another brand's product. I mean, we've seen Amazon's results over the past week that they've determined their $30 billion plus ad sales business because they're effectively delivering this in an online fashion. And this is similarly going to have a massive network effect across retail media.
Luke, you're a very accomplished creative technologist. When you look at the store as a medium through the lens of your craft, what does the store as a medium now allow you to do that maybe you couldn't do before?
Yeah, so honestly, what it does is it brings a lot of context to the type of data that we can play with. And, in these settings, it really all comes down to context. And these additional contexts or data points that we can use provide a lot of insight. And, they can increase the efficacy of how we can react to consumers in real time. So there's just a lot of information to play with. Take what we've learned in these digital e-commerce pathways and provide them into physical retail spaces. So things like real-time related products, personalization of who you are and what your shopping habits are, what your location is, not just like in the city, but actually like inside of a store, and even things like proprioception. So what direction you're looking in, what aisle you may be looking in. I think, and even previous purchases and things like that. So I think there's a lot of, again, contextual data points that you can use that really bring a lot of value to the consumer. More and more people who do what I do are leaning heavily into spatial design. So things like game design, experiential design, and even event design to understand how traffic flow works, which are kind of older principles of how we lay out these physical spaces, but introducing digital interactions and digital areas that people can engage with, whether that be in an interactive display or a projection or augmented reality, whatever it may be. That kind of a thing really plays into your physical space a lot more than what we've been working with in the past.
I think one of the interesting things, my observations, is those people who were very brave in those early days still manage today to get that first mover advantage.
Yeah, it's about getting your foot in the door and understanding where people are and then being on that journey with them as that grows. But I would say that you're also kind of standing on the shoulders of giants in a lot of ways that this works. We know so much about physical retail space already, and we know so much about, and you can see companies like IKEA and places like that really investing in how these physical spaces work when you're on a journey of, as a consumer. So we already have a pretty good foundation there, and we have a really great foundation in the e-commerce section, which is really just taking, again, those data contextual points and figuring out how to synthesize a meaningful experience for you. We can take those clues and kind of swirl them, all these things that we've learned, and kind of swirl them together. So it is experimental, but I still think that there's quite a bit of researched and exceptional data out there that we can start with.
Well, I suppose putting all the infrastructure into the store to be able to deliver personalized messages at scale to consumers is pretty useless unless you can actually deliver the content to those screens. Cecile, you sit a very interesting place at Hogarth, the epicenter of delivering content. How do you see this working?
So yes, absolutely. So the biggest challenge for brands is to create content at scale, at speed, and in a cost-efficient way. And Hogarth is heavily invested in solving that problem for them. So in the context of store as a medium, we can easily adapt to the different format specifications that are unique to the stores and specific to the infrastructure used to deploy that content across stores globally. So it brings new and innovative challenges that we're really excited to explore with the partners that are presenting today. We're talking here about, really taking advantage of the point of influence, the point of truth, as previously referred to by Maroun. And this opportunity that we have in front of us is really amplified by data that is unique in its nature and its depth and its quality.
What do brands need to start to think about now to be able to, I suppose, organize their content, their data, and the triangulation of that and what's going on in the stores in order to be in a position to be able to deliver unique content at scale to individuals?
You use the content that you have, you make it flexible and adaptable so that it is dynamic and modular, and it can be updated at speed and in a cost-efficient way, as I was saying before. And that content can be deployed in line with the infrastructure that every store provides. So it's very much using existing insights and using existing assets in line with the brand guidelines to be able to personalize and deploy that content.
What other advice do you give people who are watching this who are thinking about entering this space in terms of how they start to shape their content for a very unique environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the biggest challenge and what's probably at the forefront of everyone's mind is quality. So how to not compromise quality of content that's being delivered across different specifications, across different stores, how to maintain the integrity of content and personalize it at the same time. And we at Hogarth, we have, and working alongside our partners, we have the ability to really tap into the highest content possible, but to make that content flexible and dynamic enough that it can adapt.
Does the store as a medium excite you?
Absolutely. It's a huge opportunity for brands to deliver relevant, engaging, and high quality, as I was saying before, content, and simply stunning content that's attractive and engaging. I think that's the point. It's really capturing intent and really taking advantage of the influence that advertising can have on consumers' behavior, and to deploy relevance as we would do through other channels. So it's a huge opportunity as far as I'm concerned.
Of critical importance is privacy of data. We know that there are many things that can be done using data. That doesn't mean to say that they should be done. So Maroun, can you tell us a little bit about how the store as a medium can possibly operate within a data privacy environment?
Let me emphasize that when we talk about store as a medium, we're absolutely anchored in privacy. I talked earlier about edge compute and AI. That's what really allows us to deliver experiences to the right target audience and do it anonymously. The digital surface in the store will become and is becoming AI aware, but aware in the sense that in real time, when we're talking about a digital shelf sensing the environment around it, i.e., taking an image, we're deconstructing that image, we're translating the image into ones and zeros, doing it in real time, making sense of it, deleting the image, and doing all of that in less than 10 milliseconds, and only sending metadata to the cloud. Of course, absolutely zero PII information. So it is this edge compute that's going to allow us, give store as a medium, the ability to operate in a full data privacy compliant way.
Now, Leon, you've spent many years analyzing and looking into both retailers and brand owners. In your experience, can the store of the medium proposition really improve performance?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that, David. Look, when I look at this emerging area of retail as a medium, I think about a number of really tangible benefits. The first would be precision. the capacity to direct messaging that is dynamic, that is related to, say, a particular shopper's gender, or even age, to related to the temperature outside, to related to whether or not there's a big, say, football game that weekend. The capacity to be precise and therefore not to realistically waste money, to me is a benefit in and of itself. I would also say that it provides, Jay spoke about the data dividend. I think it's, yes, the data dividend, but it's what you do with that data. And it's the capacity then to incorporate that data into recursive feedback loops so that you're delivering a more finely precise message to the consumer in ways that effectively optimizes the possibility of conversion. It gets back to this idea of monetizing real estate, or really the way I think about it is monetizing footfall. I mean, when you think about the degree to which the retailer is concerned about more and more volume moving online, the extent to which now you can take that store and turn it into a platform whereby you can now engage the consumer in a conversation, and to the point that Jay made earlier, it is to ultimately drive monetization such that you're able to relate the input of the merchandising messaging to the output of conversion. That to me is a holy grail.
Now, Leon, you talked about the store potentially being a platform. When you look at the store in that through that type of a lens, what big opportunities suddenly emerged that wasn't there before?
Yeah, for me, it is the capacity to have a dynamic conversation. You know, as a former store manager, I used to be concerned, of course, about expense management and cost control, but ultimately I was concerned about transactions. At the end of the day, I wanted to increase comps in my store. What this allows one to do is to do that in a way that is more, in effect, scientific. And it enabled me to have that conversational engagement so that the store is not just a place for commerce. It is a place for commerce ultimately. But in addition to that outcome, the strategy by which I achieve that commerce now becomes much more dynamic, more conversational. I start thinking about store as a platform and therefore thinking about impressions. I start thinking about engagement. I start bringing in marketing language and marketing metrics into thinking about that in-store conversation.
Where the rubber meets the road with anything really in this area, especially when you combine technology with something, is the return on investment. Jay, from your perspective and vantage point, what are you seeing now about the return on investment that both retailers and brand owners are now obtaining from their store as a medium experimentation?
Bottom line is brands have trade dollars to spend, and they've already been spent, but they have considerably more media dollars to spend. And the moment that that store becomes packaged in a media format to a brand, it becomes accessible. Now we're not talking about CapEx dollars, we're talking about recurring dollars, and we're talking about modifying the buckets into which those dollars flow. It's no longer print, more or less. It's no longer broadcast. And the big winner in the last decade and a half, 2 decades, has been the internet.
And Jay, are we actually seeing those types of numbers coming out in the initial stages of this?
Yes, thankfully we are. Yes, thankfully we are. And I wouldn't suggest for a moment that we've got uniform or universal access to every type of deployment, modern trade, traditional trade, specialized trade. I wouldn't say we have all of that data in, but the early returns are that it is ROIing, and that for the most part, the costs of deploying in retailer are about 1/3 of the revenue that can be generated by that retail. Now it has some variance, but that is a very promising metric at this stage.
Jay, we've become very used to having an amazing amount of metrics that are generated from a visit to a website or a way in which we're engaging with brands and retailers on mobile phones. The store has been lagging behind significantly in those type of metrics that are being now used to make decisions, investments. To what extent can the store as the medium provide the metrics now that people require in order to make business critical decisions?
So you're absolutely right in observing that the store lagged, and really what led the way is the various and multiple ways that the internet became an advertising medium. It's multivariate. It's not just measurement. It's many, many components that drove the internet to what you would argue is the king of the hill at the moment with respect to internet advertising, or sorry, with respect to the overall advertising budget. But we always knew that the store, at least I'm among a group that did know, I think, that the store was a better place to deliver CPG advertising. But you're at the point where you can purchase that which is being promoted to you. You're at the moment of truth. 40 or 50% of us buy something, put something in our basket at retail that we had not intended to buy when we went to retail. So this, just on the surface, explains the notion that we are influenceable at the point of sale. We all think we aren't, but the truth is we are. So can we impact that decision making at the point of sale, and can we measure the experience? Because if we can do the latter, if we can measure the experience, then we've got, in my estimation, a superior value proposition to the internet as an advertising medium, because in the internet world, you are inferring age, demographic data, like probably quite accurately inferring, but it's still an inference. It's still statistical. When in store, based upon computer vision, we're not inferring, we're getting actual information about the visitation and the nature and the demographic breakdown of that visitation. So we always knew, I think we always knew as an industry, that the moment we were able to collect that information, that measurement data in the bricks and mortar, we would break the back of the advertising model. And I think that's finally what's happened. And it had a lot to do with the reduction in the overall cost, edge computing, the fact that we're doing inference logic directly at the point of sale, like right at where the magic happens at the shelf, and the fact that we're now rolling that into an impression level glossary, an advertising glossary, if you know what I mean, David, to support the idea that the store can become monetizable in the same way that the internet does.
Well, we've been discussing the store as a medium in its various different component parts as if this is some sort of theoretical exercise. But of course, the store as a medium is real, it's happening, and there's some good examples of what's going on today. Pedro, what do you see that's going on?
So store as a medium is a medium that we've been using for years in CPGs. In traditional trade is where we communicate our campaigns, and that we do in paper. Today, technology allows us to really improve our trade execution. It allows us to do A, B, C, D testing much easier, and it allows us to understand compliance of promotions.
Jay, what are you seeing?
Well, I love the fact that Pedro's pointing out that it's been around for decades, because it has. But the major inflection point, from my perspective, is that all the logistics associated with launching a campaign, which Pedro as a CPG will be quick to point out takes months of preparation, printing, logistics, shipping, installation, and then compliance, right? This is an enormous task, and the whole process of digitization, leveraging technology to make that happen more effectively, and most importantly, with measurement.
Pedro, you talk about the trials that you're doing. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because you're trialing on both ends of the spectrum, large stores and small stores.
No, that's correct. I mean, I think that we managed to find a package along with visibility in which we really don't interfere with the operation of small mom and pops. And that's a big point. One thing that we've learned with the deployment of technology is that to solve real pain points of the mom and pops, you need to do things without friction. And we found a way to do these implementations of technology in mom and pops with no friction.
It's not like we went looking for the traditional trade, because the truth is, it would have been easier to do this deployment in modern trade, we selected the most challenging segment of the marketplace to do it in. But the hypothesis is that if we're able to execute it well in traditional trade, which we are now doing, the expansion to modern trade and the ability to do it in modern trade is considerably easier. And what's interesting, especially in the marketplaces that have regional differences like Latin America, traditional trade is a dominant category of trade. So you better figure out a way to do it in traditional trade. And what's really fascinating to me is the store as a medium, as a concept, is applicable in modern trade and traditional trade, which is sort of one of the first technology innovations that can be said about.
Before we finish, I'd just like to ask both, I think, let's ask Jay and also Maroun, what should the next steps be for people who are watching this and thinking, actually, I really do want to engage with the whole concept of the store as a medium? Jay.
Well, the next steps are to figure out what kind of offer you can make to the consumer packaged goods companies within your specific piece of real estate. What's the value of your real estate? That is usually in the media world judged and measured by reach and frequency. How many locations you have, what is the number of people that that enter your location on a given day. And we will back into that a form of a rate card, a media rate card that will identify the value of the media, and then identify, of course, based upon the number of SKUs and the present SKUs within the specific footprint, who might be interested in leveraging that location as a media buy. It's important to point out, in fact, critical to point out, that this is not a trade marketing discussion. This is a media discussion. So we're not talking about shuffling existing dollars that have been going to retailers for many years in the form of promotions and the like. This is building a media channel, like building a television channel or an internet channel, that will allow for brands to purchase slots or presence on those channels for the purpose of driving media messaging and delivering a narrative to their customers, directly engaging in an intimate relationship with their customers. In my view, this is the biggest opportunity that we've been preparing for the last half dozen years. It's a $100 billion sale of the century, creating the most important media channel in the last 100 years, a significant opportunity for the industry and for brands.
Thanks, Jay. Maroun. The final word to you.
It's really simple. In terms of next steps, we would love to have a conversation with brands and retailers and validate the value proposition that we discussed today. You will also see us engage with the creative technologies with Hogarth to unlock the value of AI and deliver the amazing experiences in the store, again, that we discussed today. You will see us engage with global DSPs, with Xax specifically, to validate that we can absolutely onboard CV data, fuse it with first-party data, other data sets, and validate their ability to transact upon that data and do it all in real time. And more importantly, validate the incremental value that can be generated from a CPM perspective. You will see us also engage with VMLY&R teams to ideate on the journeys and the experiences that we need to activate in the store to be able to leverage edge compute, AI, and the sensing capabilities of the digital surface, map those AI requirements, and develop and deliver these amazing experiences, and of course, deploy them.
Well, I'm not certain where all this time has gone for the panel, but we've pretty much run out of time for our panel part of this broadcast. So we're now going to go over to our questions and answers. If you haven't done yet, please do send any questions you've got by email to sarah.cousins@wpp.com. But whilst you're sending your last questions you've got, we're going to take a look at our metaverse that we've created for the store as a medium. Well, the questions have been coming in thick and fast during the broadcast. Thanks very much indeed. So let's get cracking and answer as many as we can in the 15 minutes or so that we have left. Now, the first area that we've had a lot of questions on is, I suppose, something that I feel a lot of empathy with. As one person put, you know, we are told a lot in the technology sort of arena of things that are ready and available, and in reality, they're not really ready and available. So I feel your pain for this particular question. And the question's all about, you know, in reality, is this technology ready and able to go now? Maybe Maroun, you could start us off.
We're absolutely ready. David, thank you again for hosting this amazing conversation with a number of our colleagues. We've had the ingredient capabilities for a number of years, and as a consortium, as you know, WPP and the number of agencies that we have on the call from WPP, including Hogarth, Kinetic, Xaxis, etc., WestRock, Lenovo, VSBLTY. We've done a great job as a consortium putting these ingredient capabilities from an end-to-end perspective, from edge to the cloud, and leverage CV, etc. VSBLTY has done an amazing job, you know, seamlessly integrating a number of these technology parts and bring about the value for store as a medium. So it's all about you know, enabling these digital services in the store to become aware. We've done that. It's about making these digital services serve content, addressable content in real time. We've done that. It's about enabling the store to transact on the impressions in real time, on when the shopper is in the aisle and proximity of these digital services. We've done that. So we're ready. This is we're deployed in Latin America. And when I say we, you know, you know, together with AB InBev and VSBLTY and the consortium, we're in 1,000 stores. Jay will tell you that we're on track to deploy in 3,000 stores by the end of this year. So we're here. This is not a vision for 2025. We can execute all of this today.
Now, we've had a number of questions around the area of, I suppose, content, and quite a few around the opportunities that these various different surfaces provide. So maybe a question, first of all, for Luc, and then maybe Cecile afterwards. Specifically, a question around what is it that these surfaces provide within the context of the store as a medium from a creative perspective that is absolutely impossible to do within any other medium? Is there truly a real creative opportunity here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the dynamicism of these pieces are really what lends me as a creator being able to take, again, those data points in that context and being able to feed that into a dynamic context for you as a consumer. So that can mean anything.
But can you not do that on a website?
Sure.
What's the added source that
you can? But I would say that a website is, you know, the idea of us being kind of strapped to a terminal and shopping is one experience. We're talking about a physical, you know, a being, a presence, being inside these spaces. And there's benefits to both of these. Of course, you can shop online and buy anything you want, but having a physical experience inside a retail store really brings that tangibility to these items, and that really helps, you know, bring a lot of, again, a sense of purchase to these experiences, and to even kind of further build on that. One of the coolest things that I think is that, you know, we take these things that we learn online, these kind of, again, upsells, these abilities to say, oh, I want to schedule this every week to be, you know, this. So we've taken the idea of having like the candy and the gum right before the cash register, and we've turned that into subscription services. We've turned it into context of upsells. We've turned it into related products. It's taking all that stuff that we do on a website and doing it online and doing it really for real in the real retail space and bringing that kind of context. I think that's the most exciting stuff for us.
And Cecile, from a getting the content from it being created to the right place at the right time, as we talked about, in a nanosecond, is that a reality now?
Yes, absolutely. And I often say every impression online is a new opportunity to get it right for brands. And then every time a person in store comes across advertising, they actually have the opportunity to engage the way they want to engage. And if they want to stay a longer time, they can. And it's type of opt-in, I'd say, behavior that is very rare online. So we really can grab the opportunity of context, as Luke was saying, but also really create a journey for the consumer and really accompany them throughout that journey. And it's a journey that they decide to take. It's not imposed upon them. So from a content standpoint, it's really exacerbated opportunity to get the content as engaging as possible and really leverage that privileged time that you have with the consumer in the store. And secondfold is also, really building bridges between digital and offline behavior. And it's really unique, and we need to grasp that, and we need to use insights that we gather in stores and really extend them back into digital. So it's a double opportunity for us to really understand behavior online and offline, and the crossovers and the opportunities.
Now, on that point, Pedro, what have you learned from a creative perspective in your journey thus far? I mean, presumably you're able to really test out, creative do A/B testing and to enhance the creative approach.
That's exactly. I think that Cecile was saying it, and I think that we are learning, or we are using the capabilities that you have in digital, but in the store, in the moment of truth. So you can really see conversion. So you have the physical accessibility of the products, and you have the digital capability of offering them. So I think that we're just scratching the surface. I think that there are many more use cases to come, more efficiency for our trade execution, much more personalization to come, and better insights at the end to improve our offer to customers that will result in better offers for the consumers. So I think that we're in the right path.
Now, Adrian, a question very much, I think, in your area around the willingness of advertisers to really want this space. And the question is quite pointed. Is this a flash in the pan, or is this long term?
This is definitely a long-term growth area, and I think similar to what we've seen in the retail media e-commerce space, we're going to see a similar, if not even more exponential growth in the retail media, in the physical space. As this, again, as the guys have very clearly articulated, this is prime real estate in the eyes and minds of the retailers and consumers to affect and influence behavior. And I think it's really powerful that, you've got the retailers, you've got brands who are all focused on leveraging and making sure we maximize the potential opportunity here. And I think consumers are going to benefit from it. They're going to enjoy and engage with it happily. So similar to what Cecile said, it's the opt-in nature of physical media, the out-of-home media, is that it exists whether you are engaging with it or not. And so when you do choose to engage, it's a much more substantial and robust connection. And I think there's some really interesting things that can be done there. I mean, we just look to the some of the other markets in the world, such as in China, where they've already had some really novel and forward-thinking executions of retail media. How do we manifest that in the markets in the Western countries, such as the US, UK, and others? What does that look like, and what are those local nuances taken into effect? I think there's some really exciting times ahead for retail media.
Now, I've had a number of questions around the business model, so maybe I can lump those together and ask both Leon and Jay to address these issues, which is in what ways now can the infrastructure that's being put in for the stores of media be used so that retailers and manufacturers can actually improve the overall store economics, over and above the communication that's going on in the store. And I think the question very much relates to things like being able to ensure that you have the right inventory in the right place, and also shrinkage as well.
Yeah, I could start, David, and then turn it to you, Jay. I mean, I think you're right. I think there are two streams here in migrating the store from a cost center to, frankly, a profit center, which is new to a lot of retailers when they think about brick and mortar. And I would say that there's certainly the efficiency strand, where you're thinking about things like shrinkage and inventory availability and frankly labor allocation in the store. But then there's the engagement strand as well, which is how you're going to engage with the consumers and monetizing that conversation with them. I think this offers common currency for manufacturers and retailers to be speaking to each other. It's a common platform based on common data to simply say, here, look, are we getting the return on the investment in merchandising in many cases that we're looking for? It's no longer that we just spend an X amount of money for and hope it gets up in 1,000 stores for your display. It's paying down the line of the conversion funnel, paying for dwell time, paying for conversion down the funnel from displays down to packaging. That I think in our mind makes this compelling and frankly puts both manufacturers and retailers on the same page, talking out of the same playbook, if you will, which I think makes it really compelling for industry players.
Thanks, Ian. Jay.
I think of it in terms of offense and defense, and maybe that's too simple, but there's an operating benefit.
You've been watching too much of the Super Bowl over the weekend, Jay.
Yeah, I think that may be right. There's an operating benefit, and then there's a monetization benefit. And then there's this unknown piece that we're calling, at least for the time being, the data dividend. Brands want to understand what's happening in retail. There's not a brand on the planet that doesn't want an intimate engagement with their customer, and they want that engagement to be direct. They don't want it to go through the retailer. The retailer is a means to an end, but this is an opportunity for retailers to take slotting and make it digital slotting. Now it's shopper activation, and they'll be able to monetize that real estate, but of course, delivering other operational benefit, inventory management, loss prevention, those sorts of things are all part of a computer vision solution, and of course, monetizing it along the way.
Well, we are almost run out of time, but in the couple of minutes we've got left, maybe I can go around the virtual table and ask you just for one word that sums up your view about the store as a medium in the future. We'll start off with Maroun.
An amazing opportunity for all involved, brands, retailers, and the shoppers.
Right. I know Robert's had to just duck out for a family emergency. I know Nicholas has kindly stepped in over the last minute or so. Nicholas, a bit unfair to ask you this now, but how would you sum it up?
I think it's about speed, David. I think it's about being able to do things at a speed that we never expected before in the store, and to be allowed an engagement of the consumer in a speed that we never had before. So for me, it's all about speed.
Thanks. Jay.
The confluence of a model with the technology, finally. We've waited for many years to make this happen. We finally have a model, an economic model that pencils for the retailer and for the brands.
Leon.
Holy Grail. It brings together the consumer, the manufacturer, and the retailer on the same page. It's the same bullseye now.
Over to you, Pedro.
So I would say this is the opportunity we have to really mix the physical and the digital space, and that's huge.
Cecile.
I'd say impact and engagement.
Adrian.
Game-changing reboot of the retail media space.
Nice. Luke.
I'll say that it is an equality. It feels like it's a good equality from bringing the capabilities that online retailers have into physical stores, and it feels like a good equilibrium.
Thank you very much. I don't know where the time has gone, but it is almost gone. I'd like to thank our technical team, Dasgupta, who has done all the video technology for us, so thanks very much. Sarah, Dominic Lynch-Robinson, our creative director, Sheila, Paul Reifer and Beth Ann Davis for helping make this as smooth as it has been. And of course to all of our participants, Maroun from Intel, Robert and Nicholas from Lenovo ISG, Jay from Visibility, Leon from WestRock, Pedro from AB InBev, Cecile from Hogarth, Adrian from Kinetic, and Luke from VMLY&R. If you haven't yet read the white paper, please download it from the URL that's on the screen now. And of course, you can also enjoy our metaverse environment where you can see some of this technology in play. So on behalf of all of us, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and have a great rest of the day.